Greetings and welcome back for another Music Theory Bite. In this video, I'm not really going to do anything new. I'm just going to show you how to read through a Nashville number chart. Actually, two Nashville number charts. I've had a lot of questions about those lately. So I'm just going to work through the process. You can see what I do with these and how I realize them and turn them into both an arpeggiation of the progression and an improvisation. So if that sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, stick around. This is the video for you. But before you watch this video, you're going to have to watch my video on arpeggiating harmonic progressions and on improvising over harmonic progressions. Those will help you to figure out what I'm talking about if there's any gaps in the knowledge that you have before you go into this. So let's get started. So before we dive into this, we need to do a little bit of interpretation of the symbols that you see in front of you. First of all, you'll see that this first progression that I'm going to work with is in major. I know that because I see the word major over on the side. It has a suggestion of a key, but for a Nashville number chart, it doesn't really matter. You can transpose it to any key, and it's not going to change anything significantly. It has a meter suggested next to it 4 times, so I'm going to stick with that meter. And then I take a look at the chord symbols and I do a little interpretation of that. So I'm going to be in the major mode. The numbers represent the scale degrees of the chord roots. So I see a 1, which would be a tonic chord, followed by a 4, a subdominant chord, a 5-7 going to a 6, followed by another 4, followed by a 5-7, and followed by a 1. I'm always conscious of my root motions when I do this. That is, my first transition from the 1 chord to the 4 chord is a root motion up by 4th. So I'm going to be using my technique, one of my two techniques for connecting chords whose roots are a 4th apart. 4 to 5 gets me root motion by 2nd, so as much as possible I want to be moving in the opposite direction of the root motion. So 4 goes up to 5. All my chord tones should go down to the closest available chord tone in the 5 chord. When I see a 5-7 chord followed by a 6, root motion by 2nd, again I'm going opposite direction, and I know that one of those two chords, at least one of those two chords, needs to be inverted, at least in the presentation that I make. Remember that chord inversions are determined by the bass player, so I'm assuming there's going to be a bass player underneath the texture that I'm providing who will be taking care of the inversions for me. So it doesn't really matter what inversions my chords end up in, as long as I end up with smooth voice leading. Now, 6 to 4, I have root motion down by 3rd. So I know that my root and my 3rd, I'm going to have to keep track of where those are. The root of a 6 chord is a 6, and the 3rd of a 6 chord is a 1. Those are going to stay on common tones. And the 5th of my 6th chord, which is scale degree 3, will step up to become the root of the resolution chord. So my 3 will step up to a 4. I have another 4 going to a 5-7. I've done that before. Same thing. I'm going to go opposite direction as much as I can. And then 5-7 to 1. Rather than thinking about root motions here, I'm just thinking about how do I resolve the 5-7 chord, what are the tendency tones, and where do they go. All right, so now that I have that all figured out, I'm going to first do a little bit of arpeggiation. That is, I'm going to think about how I'm going to present this as chords that move through the texture. So if I just pick any tonic, 1, I'll make sure I'm set up in the key if I were to do this for real, but for this video, I feel confident that I'm in the key already. So my first chord is going to be 1, 3, 5, just a basic tonic chord. Root motion up by 4th, the 3rd and the 5th will step up. 1, 4, 6. Here's my 5-7. I want to move opposite direction as much as I can, and since my 5-7 is followed by a 6, one of those two chords has to be inverted. I might as well invert the 5 chord. 7, 2, 4, 5, and then I can just go straight to the 6th chord. 5 going to 6, everything moves opposite direction. 6, 1, 3. Here's my root motion down by 3rd. The 6 and 1 are my root and 3rd. They're going to stay in the same place. 3 will step up to 4. 6, 1, 4. And now, root motion by 2nd, 4 up to 5. I'm going to move everything opposite direction to the closest available chord tone. 5, 7, 2, 4. Resolve my dominant 7th. 3, 2, 1. So now I have to do that in time. That is, I have to observe my 4/4 meter signature. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 5. 1, 4, 6. 7, 2, 4, 5, 6, 1, 3, 6, 1, 4, 5, 7, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that was a pretty good arpeggiation of my Nashville number chart. Now, when I go to improvise over this thing, I'm going to be using my techniques for improvisation. That is, repeat notes, or arpeggiate between notes, or connect the arpeggiation between notes within each measure. When I reach the end of the measure, when the chord changes, then I'm going to be using my techniques that I just used in my arpeggiation. Whatever scale degree I end on at the end of the measure, I'm going to do that same motion that got me to the chord tone in the next chord. Typically, I don't start on a 1 because most music doesn't. I'll start on another scale degree. I like starting on scale degree 3. So here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. 3, 5, 3, 4, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 2, 1. Notice how within each measure I stayed with the chord tones, and then as I reached the change of chord, I made sure that that chord tone did what that chord tone did in my arpeggiation. So I'm making sure I keep track of that the whole way. Let's do another one of these, this time in the minor mode. So you'll notice that in this case, I've used the convention where my Nashville number chart is actually using the number 1 as my minor tonic. I know that because, first of all, it begins and ends on a 1 chord, and I also see that it's marked as indicated as being in the minor mode over here on the left side of the screen. Had that set major and my first chord and last chord were 6 chords, I'd be reading this as the relative minor of whatever major key it happens to be in. But in this case, I can just take my 1 as my tonic chord. All right, so once again, I do a little bit of quick interpretation. My 1 minus is a tonic chord, going to a 6 chord, going to a 2 chord, going to a 5 chord, followed by a 1 chord, then a 4 chord, and then another 1 chord. The minus sign indicates a minor chord, and the diminished sign after the 2 shows me that I'm going to have a diminished triad there. All right, so now I check out my chord motions, my root motions. 1 to a 6 is root motion down by third. My root and my third of my 1 chord will stay exactly where they are, and the 5th of that chord will step up to become the root of the resolution chord. So my 5 will step up to a 6. From 6 to 2, that's root motion up by 4th. And so I have a couple of ways I could do this. I'm going to choose to step my 3rd and 5th up to become the root and 3rd of the 2 chord. So my 1 and my 3 will step up to 2 and 4. From 2 to 5, that's also root motion by 4th. And in this case, the 5 is not followed by a 6, so I can put this in any inversion that I want to put it in. Since I already have a 2 in the bottom of my texture, I'm going to stick with that, and I will sing my dominant 7th chord up from that 2. When I resolve that dominant 7th chord, I will end up at the top of that chord on a 7, a leading tone, so I'm going to want to make sure that thing resolves appropriately. And then I'll probably, since that's getting kind of high up in the texture, I'm going to move down through that 1 chord. 1 to 4 is root motion by 4th. In this case, it'll be my 3rd and my 5th will step up to become the root and 3rd of the 4 chord. So my 3 and my 5 will step up to become 4 and 6. And then those 2 tones can just step right back down to my 1 chord. All right, so let's try this. Here's my tonic. 1. So without worrying about meter at this point, I'm going to just arpeggiate through the chords first. 1, 3, 5, root motion by 3rd, my 5 steps up to 6. 1, 3, 6. The other 2 tones will step up to the 2 chord. 2, 4, 6. Here's my 5 chord. Since I'm already on a 2 at the bottom of the chord, I'm going to keep that right where it is. 2, 4, 5, 7. To the 1 chord, resolve my dominant 7th. 1, 5, 3, 4, 6, 1, 3, 5, 1. So that should work the way that I have it right there. So now I have to put it into the meter. My meter indicator indicates that I should be in 3/4 time. So I'm going to have to figure out how to arpeggiate those in 3/4 time. The only one where I might have an issue is my 5/7 chord, which has 4 tones in it. So I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do with that. So here we go. 1, ready, go. 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 6, 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 5, 7, 1, 5, 3, 1, 6, 4, 1, 5, 3, 1. And that worked pretty well. Now I have to turn that into an improvisation. Same thing. I will arpeggiate between chord tones within a measure and use those motions as I reach the end of a measure to get to the next chord. Once again, I don't like to start on ones, so in this case, maybe I'll start on a 5 this time. 1, ready, go. 5, 5, 6, 4, 4, 3, 2, 2, 3, 5, 4, 6, 5, 3, 1. With only 7 chords, it felt a little bit strange metrically. I should have had an 8th chord there. I wanted to make everything feel nice and comfortable, or maybe I could have extended that 1 chord down at the end. But what I came up with worked. All right, so you now have your technique demonstrated for you. Make sure you do your interpretation, you do your arpeggiation, think about your chord motions, your root motions as you do your arpeggiation. Use what you learned from the arpeggiation to help you move from chord to chord in the improvisation, where you're going to be using your 3 techniques for improvisation. That is repetition, arpeggiation, and connected arpeggiation. Well, that does it for this video. As always, if you found it helpful, please make sure you like it. Feel free to leave constructive comments down below. And as always, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel for the latest music theory bites as they become available. Until next time.